Karen calls 911 because I'm a pregnant cocktail waitress, and that is not allowed. I'm a cocktail waitress. I'm 7 months pregnant. No, obviously, I don't drink while pregnant or drink on the job, ever. A woman, the Karen, comes in with what I'm assuming was her husband and son and daughter and asks to be seated. For lunch. We're not really a restaurant, but you do have a small apps menu with sandwiches and wings and stuff. I give them menus and Karen says, "But wait, do you work here?" "Yep, but you're pregnant. You can't work here if you're pregnant." "I work here, I don't drink here," I say with a laugh, trying to keep the mood light. The woman looks over and says, "Have you taken any prenatal courses? Do you really think that's responsible to have your unborn baby in here?" This is where I made an error. I get defensive about anyone asserting that I'm a bad mother, obviously. So I said, "Well, you've brought your kids in here." "Yes, and what kind of example do you think you're setting for them?" I'm still collecting my thoughts at this point when they grunt and wave me away. I figure I can kiss my tip goodbye, but hopefully that'll be the end of the discussion. As a disclaimer, all these quotes are my best approximation of my memory in the moment. I see them flagging down the bartender after a few minutes and figure they're ready, so I go over as well. The Karen is asking to speak to a manager. Surprise. Now, they haven't even got their drinks yet, so nothing above my abilities could have really gone wrong. I just ask if there's anything I can help them with. And her husband, Mr. Karen, says really sternly, "No, just a manager. Didn't you hear my wife?" The place is too small for a manager. It's just servers and bartenders and 2 co-owners. The one who's working is on the back on a phone call and will be annoyed if I go and bother her. I realize they're probably still uncomfortable with my being pregnant, so I say maybe Ella, the only other server, can help, but Karen just gets up to physically look for the manager. I admit defeat and go back to drag her off her call. The owner tried not to let on how mad she was about being disrupted and goes over with a big smile to ask if there's anything she can do to help them. Karen informs her, as though it's urgent breaking news, "Your server is pregnant." The owner says she's aware and asks if they'd prefer a different server. No. She can't be a drink girl if she's pregnant. That's endangering a child. The owner says, "I assure you none of our employees drink on the clock, especially not our pregnant ones. If you'd prefer, I can have Ella serve you instead." Mr. Karen comes in. "I don't want my kids seeing this." Maybe I'm missing something? What don't you want your kids seeing? A pregnant woman around all this alcohol. I cut in. I don't know what you're insinuating, but I would never drink during pregnancy.
Look, honey, you didn't take a health class in junior high? With a drink right under you half the time, alcohol vapor is absorbed into your blood through the air, and then that blood goes to the fetus and poisons it.
The owner and I exchange a look and realize we won't get anywhere with her. The owner says, "So we can have Ella serve you, or I'm afraid there isn't much we can do. We're not leaving until she's placed on maternity leave, or better yet, fired. We can't help you. I'll call the police. You're an accomplice to child endangerment." "There's no child endangerment to speak of, sir. Please leave."
You may not think that a fetus is a child, but I was taught to believe life begins at conception, and I will stand up for all living things, big and small, because that's what my Lord and Savior wants me to do.
The entire time she's delivering this tearful speech, she's looking around expecting others to, join in with her? Applaud? The owner says, "Hey, I don't need anyone to tell me what Jesus said. If there was any actual child endangerment here, I'd have acted to stop it, but there isn't any. I need to ask you to please leave." "I'm calling the police." You do that. We just try to stop serving their table. As we all wait for the cops to arrive, Karen keeps trying to give her sermon, but there was a game on that people had come to watch, and eventually everyone yelled at her until she piped down. Enter the cops. Awesome officers 1 and 2. "Yeah, police, we received a call. Is there a Mr. Karen in here somewhere?" "Right here, officers. You said you were witnessing," checks notebook, "child endangerment. Are the parties involved still in the bar?" Karen family points me out. I pretend not to notice because I'm worried the officers will take them outside and I won't be able to watch any more fireworks. The other one comes in. "So, what exactly was going on?"
"That woman was drinking. She's pregnant. You can plainly see she's very pregnant."
Before I can go over and tell them she's lying about my drinking, the officers look at each other and then look back at the Karen family.
"That's not illegal."
"What?" "Look here. It's definitely not recommended, but it isn't illegal. Now, do you know the woman? Is she a friend of yours? Family?"
She works here, in a bar, and she's pregnant.
I want to see the place's liquor license revoked. So listen, she isn't doing anything illegal. What I can do is I will talk to her, but we can't take any action beyond that. Is there anything else you observed that you'd like to report? So the second officer comes over to me and takes me to a quiet spot while the first is getting their personal information and taking the rest of the statement. Karen is crying again, and I assume bemoaning being the last bastion of good Christian morality in this bar. Awesome Officer 2 introduces himself and congratulates me on the pregnancy and says I probably overheard why they were called and starts to offer me some public resources for new mothers, parenting classes, among other things. I didn't want to interrupt him, so I was waiting for the right moment to interject with my plea of innocence. That's when patrons come over thinking I'm in trouble and start defending me. We have plenty of regulars who know me and they wouldn't let this BS stand. Some even complained to the officers that the owner had asked the Karen party to leave and they'd continued to make a scene. So both awesome officers go and talk to the owner, who said she was just about to call them herself on account of the trespassing. But sirens outside are bad for business and she was hoping the Karens would eventually leave on their own. The officers tell the Karen party they need to leave. This is a public space. I have every right to be here if I want. No, sir, this is a private business, and the business owners have asked you to leave. It sounds like more than once, but at least once since we've been here.
This is a disgrace. This is an affront to scripture and child safety and…
I understand you're upset, ma'am. Let's talk about it outside. Officer 2 places a hand on Mr. Karen and gives him a firm look. This next part was said as Mr. Karen walks out backwards so he can keep yelling at us, but bumping into things every step of the way. I'll be contacting the authorities about your liquor license, bump. I happen to be very close friends with the mayor, crash. And you two, I want badge numbers. Don't think we're done here because we haven't even, bang, started. So the officers took them out, and as it was told to me by a regular who left around the same time, walked the Karens to their car, which was illegally parked in a handicap space, for which they were ticketed. They did make a complaint to the liquor authority, claiming, among many other things, that we served minors. We can't prove it was them, but we're sure it was them. We were investigated, but obviously came up okay. My boss asked me to hold off sharing this story with anyone until the matter was settled. But now it is, so I had to share. I'm still laughing about it. In short, a family of Karens tried to tell me I couldn't work as a cocktail waitress because I'm preggers. We tried to tell them they were wrong. They called 911 and they got a parking ticket. Wow, the crazy was so strong here. How have these people survived out in society for as long as they have? And how many restaurants have they been banned from? So many questions. Also, notice how the religious Karens also have completely wild takes on scripture that are definitely not actually in the scripture. Show me, thou shalt not serve margaritas while prego, and maybe I'll consider revoking this one criticism. But also look at the statement, she needs to be placed on maternity leave, or better yet, fired. Better yet? Yeah, I'm sure the mother having no money when the baby's born will help their development immensely. That's clearly the Karen's priority here. Fricking nutters. Go and get banned from everywhere else and live in a cult far away from decent people, please. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Unwilling to pay? Let them eat splooge cake. So I'm a 17-year-old web dev who can make basic websites and stuff to earn money for video games. The jobs are pretty easy for the pay. I got picked up by some local bakery so that people could pre-order cakes and things online. It took a few hours to puke out a functional back-end and a day to make it look all pretty. Thanks, Bootstrap. I had agreed to 700 rupees, basically $10, which is insanely cheap even for India. But all I need is video game money, so I'm fine with that. When I'm done with the job, they needed to purchase the domains and a server, which I explicitly told them, you pay me $10 and use another 10 to buy a domain and 5 to rent servers. The total is $25. They gave me $15 so I could set their stuff up. Once the website was fully operational, I asked for my money. But apparently they didn't want to pay because if I wasn't hosting the server anyways, why do I need compensation? You know, because apparently time has no value. The thing is, I could still access the server as I had the credentials for it. So I went home, logged in, and made one tiny change. The way the website works is that there's a customer page which shows you your orders, and there's a page for the store owners to see orders, payments, among other things. Here's what I did. I added a small inconspicuous, may contain splooge warning in all product details. In the page where it shows you order confirmations to the customer, some options are changed to have splooge in them, like splooge frosting. The website went down in about a week and they're back to selling on Facebook. I'm guessing someone complained about it or something. Yeah, honestly, the bakery deserved that. If you're not willing to pay for the people who are making your advertising, don't do advertising. And if you're going to shortchange them, you deserve bad advertising. Obviously, the narrator had to change the clinical term for this particular bodily substance to splooge, so if you weren't clear on what I meant, this particular term is the most friendly identifiable one he could find for the male contribution in the 2 starting ingredients needed to make a baby. So I hope that the customers enjoyed a week of high-protein cakes and bread and weren't too disappointed when that ingredient was removed from the advertising. Better luck elsewhere, protein consumers. My friend's entitled parent thinks I made up my severe allergy and then shames me for throwing up. This happened when I was about 8 years old, and my parents only recently reminded me that it occurred. For some background information, I'm really allergic to potatoes. They give me blisters all over my mouth and make me violently ill for about 2 days after eating them. Anyway, on to the story. When I was about 8 years old, I was having a sleepover with my best friend. My mum dropped me off at about noon, so I was going to have dinner at their house. My mother specifically told my friend's mother that I was allergic to potatoes, so she could make something without them. When dinner came around, my friend and I went to eat. His mother had made us casserole, but little did I know the main ingredient to this is potatoes. We ate and then went and played until we went to bed. At around midnight, I woke up with my mouth full of bleeding blisters. I ran to the toilet and started violently chucking up. Let me tell you, stomach acid does not feel good on open blisters. I was crying on the floor, blood and throw up leaking from my mouth, when the mother walks into the bathroom. She tells me that, "You need to stop being so dramatic if you want to go anywhere in life," and that allergies aren't real unless you let them be. Just a reminder, she's saying this to a crying 8-year-old child who's dry heaving over the toilet, bleeding from the mouth. She goes back to bed, leaving me in the bathroom for the rest of the night. Morning comes around and my mum comes to pick me up. Through my blistered mouth, I tell her what happened. She goes ballistic, tells me to wait in the car, and I can hear her screaming at the other mother from outside. Suffice to say, that was the last time I ever hung out with my friend at his house. In short, I'm allergic to potatoes. This entitled mother feeds me potatoes without my knowledge and calls me a drama queen for having an allergic reaction. So you know how in the first part of this video we had a made-up charge of child endangerment going on in that pub with the pregnant waitress? Well, if that particular Karen needed an example of what actual endangerment looks like, then go no further than this story. Like, there could have been actual charges coming out of this, and the lady who fed the kid potatoes should consider herself lucky that the author didn't die. The way that she walks into the bleeding and chucking up and immediately knows that this is the time for a sermon on how all of this is made up shows that it was definitely a premeditated move to make that particular meal. What an awful woman. The funny part is, the kind of person who believes that being a waitress while pregnant constitutes child endangerment is exactly the same kind of person who would think that allergies are made up. Let's just put all these people on one island together. Entitled mum insists that I should change my dog's name to not confuse her son about animals. This is so ridiculous and happened like 10 minutes ago. I couldn't walk home fast enough to get Wi-Fi and share it. Background info, I live in Argentina. I'm an advanced student in English teaching. I have 4 dogs and one of them is named Monkey. Before lockdown was enforced and made mandatory back in March, I used to tutor this kid called Kay. He's 5, in English. He'd be starting English classes at school this year and his mum, the entitled mother henceforth, had wanted him to have a head start in comparison to the other kids in his class. She had said that Kay was insecure about starting school and wanted him to feel accomplished and smart by being ahead of his classmates. Weird logic, but okay. She was paying me good money and the kid actually showed an interest in the language and all the activities I did with him. So tutoring him was actually enjoyable for both of us. When lockdown was enforced, we had to suspend the tutoring sessions because public transport was unavailable and they lived in the other corner of the city. So fast forward to today. I took my dog Monkey, for a walk, and we ran into the entitled mother and Kay at the park, and Kay was thrilled to meet one of my dogs at last. I'd talked about him before and showed him pictures. Kay was very polite and asked what her name was, how old she was, and if he could pet her. When I told him my dog's name was Monkey, he was thrilled to let me know that he knew what that word meant because they'd learned about different animals in his classes during the year. His mother was less thrilled to know that I'd named my dog as another animal. She started questioning me, although it felt more like an interrogation, about why I'd do it, if I did it just to show off my skills in English, and if I was aware it could be confusing, and so on. I asked her what she meant by confusing, thinking that she meant about the gender of my dog. I find it silly that people assume animals' gender by their names, but it happens. But she said, and I'm quoting here, "Why would you try to confuse my son by naming a dog as another animal? He's trying hard to learn things in English because you prompted him to, and now whenever he hears the word monkey, he'll think of your dog." I tried to explain to her why I'd chosen that name for my dog, but she then went on about how I should change my dog's name to something more dog-like so children like her son wouldn't feel confused about animals. She was very insistent on names I could call my dog, even telling her son to try calling Monkey other names to see if she responded. And I almost told her I could probably call her the entitled mother's name instead because she is a B word after all, so no confusion there. But I restrained myself because her kid was there and I didn't want to deal with her getting all angry at me in public. Kay said he liked Monkey's name because it's unique and suits her because of her curly tail, like a monkey cartoon, and I told him it was actually one of the reasons I'd chosen that name for her. To be honest, the other reason is that when I brought her home, I was on a binge for anything Arctic monkeys related, for some reason, so there's also that. The entitled mother realized there was no winning for her in the issue and quickly said some greeting, took her kid and left. Monkey and I actually shared a look for a moment, and I took it as a cue to go home already. God, we are on a crazy mum roll for this video now, aren't we? The narrator wonders whether his childhood cat, Cleopatra, was confusing to any other kids who had yet to take their first history class. But seriously, the author can't really be called a jerk under any circumstances here. Maybe under some light if she had gone on the offensive and actually followed through on her line about the lady being a B-word, but I'm glad she kept her cool here for the sake of the kid. And at least this woman realized eventually that she should just quit and take the L. That's more than you can say for a lot of the people in these videos. Am I the jerk for going to the ladies' room? I'm a 31-year-old man and was at a large store yesterday with my 5-month-old son, when he did what babies do. I went over to the restrooms and saw that there wasn't a family or companion restroom, just a men's and women's. I went into the men's room and saw there was a cubicle and a few urinals, but no changing table. The sink didn't have a counter either. I walked out and hunted down an employee to ask where the changing table was. She said it was in the bathroom, and I asked where, assuming there was a family or companion restroom on the other side of the store. She took me back to where I just was. I asked if there was another bathroom, and she said no. I told her I was just in the bathroom and there was no changing table. She asked if I was sure and suggested I look again. I was annoyed, but I went back into the men's room. No changing table. When I came out, the employee was gone. Keep in mind, my son has been in his number 2 filled diaper this whole time, so I gave up and headed into the ladies' room, which sure enough has a changing table. There was a woman in there washing her hands and she said, "Wrong bathroom, buddy." I gestured to my son and said, "No changing table in the men's room." She laughed and said, "Bro, that sucks," and then she walked out. So I rushed to change him, hoping to be done before anyone else walked in. I was almost done when a woman walked in and started screaming at me. I tried to explain what I was doing, but she kept screaming, "Get out! You can't be here!" and then she ran out. I finished putting the diaper on and rushed out of the bathroom. I saw the woman talking to an employee and decided to leave without my stuff. The employee tried to wave me down and stop me, but I rushed out to my car, buckled my son into his car seat and left. My wife said I absolutely did the right thing, but my mum said I'm an idiot and was 100% in the wrong. My sister won't stop laughing at me and is no help at all. Am I the jerk? How are you in the wrong here? Zero explanation from the mum here, and where the heck else are you meant to change the baby? If the employee showed you to the start of the area where this changing room is, and the only one that exists is in the ladies' room, what the frick else are you meant to do? I think the only thing that you could have done better was stand your ground when the employees came for you, as you were there at their advice after all. But I don't blame you for running either. Nobody has time for that crap and it sounds pretty stressful. I hope you can feed your mum a chill pill. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. Or if you want to check out some great music, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, give Am I the Genius a shot. Everything linked in the description.